Victoria.
Welcome back, my friends, to the In Obscuria podcast, a podcast where we exhume obscure rock and punk and metal, and we put them in one of three categories: the lost, the forgotten, or the should-have-beens. I'm a should-have-been named Kevin. That's a lost person over there named Robert.
Lost?
Forgotten.
I am right here.
No. Never forgotten, Robert.
Standing right here in the dark, in the corner.
What's up with you this week, sir?
Not much. Got to give a shout out to our local boys and guess what? Collective Soul.
Yeah?
Never thought I'd be bringing this up. They got new music out that's actually good.
Yeah, I heard some of the new stuff too. I didn't mind it.
Yeah, it was on the radio, and then our friends in Decibel
On the
Geek,
what?
On the radio.
The what?
Yeah, our friends in Decibel Geek gave it a shout out too. So that just shows you how good it was. That it's not just me saying that, but we got actual professionals, professional podcasters saying how good it was too.
Damn it, you've already said their name. Now we got to pay them twice.
Oh, is that right? Oh,
God.
yeah. Delete that. Yeah, go ahead and edit
that.
that out. But that was a pretty damn good song. Anyway, it rocks. It's for these guys, you know, they're our age or maybe a little more. I don't know how old they are.
Yeah.
But they had big hits in the 90s, real catchy songs and tunes, and didn't hear much from them for a while. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, these guys just kind of had a fire lit under them. It's actually a good rocking song.
Well, awesome. So I dig that.
That was enough. That's our podcast for today. Thanks for listening.
Is that all that's going on? You heard a song
nothing.
And you like it?
That was it. I got nothing else going on. My life's
You're the
pretty
guy with
boring,
the stories, man. Where are the stories?
The stories were, it rained all of Labor Day weekend. So I was supposed to go camping or go up to our favorite property up in South Carolina. And it rained. And I saw the forecast and went, you know what? Staying home. So I worked for 2 days straight on a tiny fire truck. And it's done.
And it looks pretty badass.
Thank you.
Actually. So please post that on our Facebook.
Yeah, I've got to get some of the graphics on it. But it is a, honest to goodness, fire apparatus.
If you're joining us for the first time,
Yes.
the man put together a tiny fire truck.
This is what COVID kind of started.
If people are thinking, what is it, a model? No.
It's a fully
Explain
functional.
what this thing is.
It started off, if you want to Google, Toro Workman HD, technically. So it's kind of used on golf courses and football fields and things like that. It's like it started off as a tiny dump truck, but it's heavy duty. These things are like cars. They're built like cars. They drive like cars, but it's the size of a golf cart. Does about 20 miles an hour top speed. So it's not super fast, but they're geared really low. But it'll haul like 2,000 pounds. And I moved 10 tons of dirt in my backyard over the course of a couple of days when we were doing some landscaping back in the spring. And then after that, I'm like, well, what do you do with something like this? And so I had the idea. It was already had some red parts to it. I decided to paint the whole thing red. I had some extra fire engine sirens laying around, which, you know, everybody does in your basement. You just got some bells and whistles laying in your basement.
Sure. Sirens, lights. Yeah, everything.
Yeah. So I put a bunch of lights on it, put sirens on it, then put a bitchin' sound system in it.
Bitchin' stereo.
It's got a subwoofer. It's got 2 cup holders, not just one. Yeah, so I
fully functioning.
Stripped it down to just the chassis, rewired it, fully functioning, everything, took the rust off of it, repainted everything, just got it back together. So that's what I did Labor Day weekend was I reassembled everything. And then to kick everything off, I'm going to letter it. So it says City of Smyrna Volunteer Fire Department. So it looks like it's an official truck.
Now, what happens when the City of Smyrna rolls by? They give.
That's what I'm hoping is they just kind of give me a side eye that they think, okay, that must be official. So we're not going to give them a ticket because I plan on driving this thing on the road. That's the whole purpose.
I'm taking it on the interstate.
Yeah, maybe not the interstate, but the local roads. And I'm going to drive it until I get told not to drive it or I get a ticket, one of the two. And then I'll reassess my life and come up with something else. But right now, I'm just going to push the limits to see if I can drive this tiny fire truck around town and just not get completely arrested. I hope I just get a ticket or a citation. But if they find a reason to actually take me to jail, Smyrna's got a nice jail. I have not been inside the holding cells, but I have been there to drop or pick people up. Our friend, we're not going to give his name out, but this was 20 years ago.
A man who at one time was a singer in maybe a band or two of mine.
Yes, he's been mentioned on this podcast, but not to shame
not today,
like that.
Not today.
Yeah, but anyway, so yeah, I've been there for visits and to pick up paperwork and stuff like that. But I've heard it's if I have to go to jail, it's gonna be a nice little small like Mayberry type jail, so it's not too bad.
Well, after you push the limits of your local authorities, go listen to Pot of Thunder, Cobras and Fire, Growing Up Rock, Slamfest Podcast, Decibel Geek, A to Z Radio, Metal Up Your Podcast, The Hustle, Disciples of the Watch, Podcast Rock City, Sean Geek and Fast Fret Podcast, State of Amorica, Rock Strikes 10, Potter Than Hell, Podkiss, The Kiss Room, Ages of Rock, Retrozest Podcast, The Synaptic Empire, and don't forget about Monty's Rockcast. Come visit us at inobscuria.com. Like us, share us, recommend us, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Go leave us a review. It is about that time. And go buy some of our shit.
We got the stuff. Go buy it.
We put it up there. You might as well buy it.
Exactly. Kevin worked minutes on that.
I did. I worked like
many minutes.
At least 10 minutes.
Yes.
Creating that
professional looking logos.
Yes. Hey, Robert, if my calendar is correct, it is officially Goth-tember. Yes?
Did we say we're going to start that early?
Well, guess what?
We are now.
Here's because
I was definitely looking forward to Gothtober.
Yes.
And then we haven't determined what November is going to be because it doesn't really alliterate as easily.
No, it doesn't.
Gothvember.
Well, if you remember, if you're keeping track with us, we were going to see some major goth bands this month.
Yes.
Both of them coming to our shores from the UK. And guess what, Robert?
They've both canceled.
You gotta win.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yes, the Mission UK canceled. We were supposed to see them this week. And the Bauhaus.
Mr. Bow Wow.
The Bauhaus.
Little Bauhaus.
Little Bauhaus.
Damn it.
So
what's his problem?
No goth for us.
He's
no
only like
goth
80 years old.
Timber.
He can't keep it up to do one more tour.
That one just got canceled. At least the Mission said it would be rescheduled, meaning they're keeping my money. It would be rescheduled until next year.
I see how that happens.
And the ticket, all they did is just change the year on the ticket, on the e-ticket. It now says 23. Yeah. But the Bauhaus completely canceled. They probably split up again.
They hold it together for about 4 or 5 months at a time.
So I guess we'll be booking the Love and Rockets reunion show because that's what happens when the Bauhaus split up is we get Love and Rockets. So maybe we'll
I'm okay with going to see them. I've never seen them either, so that's like the second fiddle. I'll go see that.
Well, I didn't really talk about what I'd been up to. The last time we recorded, I left the day after we recorded and I went to Arkansas.
Arkansas.
And that was a cool trip. I got back and it was just in time for my child's 11th birthday.
Woo.
My oldest turned 11 on Saturday, and just like every kid about that age, what do they want to do? They want to go to a theme park for the birthday. No more do you get to do some of the kiddie things. Chuck E. Cheese
that's
and that
out
stuff.
now.
That's
you got to actually go to the real thing.
No, I had to take them to a theme park.
Which one did you go to? We're in Atlanta, Georgia. Which one did you go to?
I went to Six Flags over Georgia.
Oh, God.
And
poor thing.
Let me just tell you a little something about theme parks in general.
When you're older.
When you're older.
And grumpy.
Here's the one thing I learned from the last time I went, which was in January. I learned that somebody who has a bad neck disc problem should not ride rides. And so I listened to myself this time, Robert. I actually didn't ride anything. I did not go on a single roller coaster, which for me is very hard to do. But that allowed me to observe where I was a little more. And it was hot and humid, and it rained off and on all day. And there is just a whole different level of bacterial growth at a theme park
in the summertime. In Georgia.
Yeah, it was just
we've had a lot of rain too, so there's just extra funk.
It was like a whole different level of funk and just grime. And like I said, I couldn't ride anything, so I'm having to just kind of stand around, and I feel like I'm just
there's nowhere to sit.
Well, there are places to sit, but I'm not sitting there.
No,
right?
It's like a wall or something you lean on.
I feel like everything that I touch has been licked or sweat on. And it's
sneezed on.
It's
There's
just
COVID coming out of every pore.
Exactly. This is just like an incubator, this place. Yeah. Although the kids were having a good time.
Monkeypox.
Exactly. There was all kind of pox. There was a gorilla pox there.
Gorilla pox. Yeah, it grows well here.
So anyway, I was basically marinating, just standing there, marinating in my own sweat.
Sous vide.
And I was experiencing smells that I had never quite smelled before. And
you've been in a band van with me and two other dudes many times. So that's saying something.
Theme parks are gross. This is where I'm going. Okay. Theme parks are gross, man. But my kids had a good time. But the muck and everything that I was in, and it just felt like I was underground, but I was above ground. It was that nasty. And so I just knew it was a sign for our next episode.
Bacterial wonders.
I was experiencing true muck. I was experiencing just true grungy nastiness. And so, yes, this is episode 143, Under the Grunge, Part 4.
Nice.
Like that transition?
Yeah, it does. I'm always in the mood for that.
So we have covered grunge obviously, from the title, we have covered it now. This will be our fourth time. So episode 28, episode 72, and episode 124. We've covered grunge and all the bands that are around the 90s era of grunge, whether they're from Seattle, Pacific Northwest, or somewhere else. But there was a whole history of that movement that we've talked about, so I don't think we need to go too deep into it. But I thought it was interesting that we're doing this show the week after we do a glam metal hairband show, because the age-old question is, did grunge kill glam metal?
The answer is
yes and no. I think yes and no.
Okay.
I think absolutely it killed it because all those bands went away, and we've played some of those bands who tried to be grunge bands. But I also think that everything goes through cycles, right?
It had definitely peaked and was just repeating itself over and over.
We talked about that last week. There were some bands that we played that were on the later,
92,
on the
93.
92. They're right on the cusp of this whole grunge thing coming onto the scene, and they were rehashing things that had already been done. Even though they were good songs, it was still rehashed.
If you had moved that song to 89, I think it would have been a hit. It's several of those that we played last week.
Right, exactly right. So grunge is a whole subculture. If you think about where it came from, it is definitely Seattle, Sub Pop Records, CZ Records, all the bands that you think of, the big four: Nirvana, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam. You can throw Mother Love Bone in there, which is where Pearl Jam kind of came from. And even some of the non-Seattle bands like STP, Bush, Sonic Youth, Silverchair, all considered grunge. And it actually didn't last that long. If you think about...
No, it seemed like
it had effects that lasted
people talk
a while.
about the 90s and they talk about grunge. But
it's really just the first half.
It was just the first half because alt-rock took over.
Yeah. And I think, there's more bands in the post-grunge era, which is another genre that they've termed, which they put all the Nickelbacks and all that into post-grunge.
Sorry.
But I don't even consider it's not grunge. That's just they took kind of the angsty vibe maybe and took that forward. But yeah, grunge itself, I mean, it was late 80s to 94, 95, and then what's truly grunge is kind of done.
Well, I mean, and on the public airwaves and in the mainstream, you're talking 91 to 94.
Right.
Really,
absolutely right.
3 to 4 years.
Yeah, it was Nirvana.
The bands were around for a couple of years before it became a craze, but you say 91 was when it really just absolutely exploded, and then 94 to 95, it turned into just, there were a lot of other bands out there competing for the same airwaves.
Yep, and the hair bands were there through almost 93. So it was like there was still two things going on. But we're going to talk about grunge today. We're going to talk about some Seattle bands that maybe you have not heard of, and that's what we've done on all of these episodes. And I'm sure you're thinking, how could he possibly find more? Well, I have.
Kevin would find them.
And some of these have really big connections to some of the big four, but they just didn't quite break, like this first one we're going to listen to. Seattle band formed in 1989, and they included members of Skinyard, Room 9, Green River, and the Presidents of the United States of America. Several of those bands went on to do other things. Most notably, I guess the Presidents were the biggest of all of those. But Skinyard, we played on the first episode. Green River, we've talked about. We've yet to play Green River. That might be on an upcoming
Those are
episode.
new to me. I mean, obviously Presidents I've heard of because I can't stand them. But
why do you not like the Presidents? You just don't like the songs?
That one song.
Peaches?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to annoy me, play that song.
Moving to the country, I'm gonna eat a lot of peaches. I'm moving to the country, I'm gonna eat me a lot of peaches. I'm moving to the country, I'm gonna eat a lot of peaches. I'm moving to the country, I'm gonna eat a lot of peaches. Peaches come from a can, they were put there by a man.
Okay.
There are other songs like Flaming Lip. Hated them at first, but that song grew on me. It took several years. Vaseline or whatever she uses.
She don't use jelly.
when it first came out, I didn't understand it. I just like, this is stupid. It's silly. But then I kind of understood more their art form and like a lot of their other stuff. But that never happened with Presidents. They never had anything else that really transcended.
I think they only released 2 or 3 albums. They weren't around that long.
It was just one of those niche bands that, hey, if you like them, that's cool.
I like them, but I get it. So this band is not them, but a guy would go on to form Presidents. But this band is called Love Battery. And they were described as slackers on acid. So they were a little more on the 60s psychedelic side.
I could pick up the phone right now and call several of those.
Exactly. Yeah, I know quite a few of those my whole life.
My phone was just ringing, in fact.
Yeah, so a little more psychedelic, but they definitely have that Black Sabbath and Stooges vibe to them as well, which puts them right firmly in the grunge category. They released 5 albums from 1990 to 1998, just never quite caught on in the heyday of grunge, even though it seemed like every major label dropped every hair band and were instead trying to find the next grunge
It really
band.
was. It's amazing that any of those bands didn't make it because they were throwing everything out there. They were shaking every tree, looking,
and especially in Seattle, they were looking under
every record
everything.
company in the world had reps going to clubs in Seattle back then.
Yep, and this was one of those bands, and for whatever reason, it just never caught on. There's a pretty infamous documentary that came out in 1996 called Hype, which kind of talks about the whole scene and how it came to be. This band were actually featured in that film, and yet you don't know who they are, and they just never caught on. So the last album they released was in 1999, which contradicts what I just read about their releasing 5 albums from 90 to 98. So it must be 90
Nothing like
99.
discrediting yourself live as you go, just completely ruining your reputation.
Yes, I've really done my homework, folks. So yeah, their last album, 1999, most of the grunge bands had already quit or died. Literally.
True. Yeah.
By that point.
The attrition rate was pretty steep. That's one reason
they
didn't last long.
I only own the album that came out in 1999, and it is very firmly in the earlier 90s as far as sound. By that point, again, things had moved on. Everything's cyclical. So just didn't happen for them. They did reunite in 2018 and played some shows, and they promised they were going to put a new album out. That never happened. Then we had a little thing called COVID, so who knows. But I'm going to play some Love Battery. This is the title song from the album that came out in 99, not 98. The name of the album is Confusion A Go-Go, as well as the name of the song.
Give
Yes, I recognize that sound, but I have a hard time describing it. It's not anything extreme. There's just...
It's like Slackers on acid.
Yeah, exactly. Done. Show's over. But it's got the little guitar leads that were kind of low in the mix. Like you had two different guitars leading kind of at the same time. A little weirdness like that. Just the style of his voice. You know, it just... like he wasn't carrying as much. It wasn't screaming.
It wasn't like aggressive punk.
Yeah.
It was more like, I don't give a shit.
Whatever, dude, you know, get off my cloud. So yeah, all that together, which same thing is when the first time I heard grunge music, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to describe it. It was just, I kind of like this. And then I really like this. Kind of
cool.
And I guess, yes, I've admitted this before, that one reason I was drawn to it, because finally there was guitar music that I could probably play. Because this whole time I'd learned to play guitar back in 89, 90, 91, shredders galore. And I'm like, well, I can't do that. So I'm never going to be in a band. But then all of a sudden grunge came out and I'm like, oh, they're just kind of slapping some chords around and playing whatever the hell they want. I'm like, oh, I can do that. And I don't have to wear spandex. I don't have to do my hair all tall and everything.
You could literally just walk on the stage.
Yes. And I was like, oh, maybe I can do this. And I did. And we did it. And so I guess I'm always going to have a fond place in my heart for this music, is because it opened up a lot of doors and we had a lot of fun because of it.
Well, and I totally agree with you. And
we weren't a grunge band, just to clarify that.
No, not at all.
This was another 15 years after that by the time we were in a band, but still, I can't do math. 10 years.
10 years. I mean, this came out in 99. So we had put together
You and I were already
Mercy
together.
Beat,
Yeah.
our very first version of the band that we eventually renamed Big Jack Pneumatic.
So it was kind of tiny, but still, the first round of grunge was 6 or 7, 8 years before.
But that still felt very 91, 92.
Absolutely. Just a time warp.
Yeah. And I agree with everything you said. When grunge came out, to me, it was, well, just look at what this podcast is. We cover rock and punk and metal. Mm-hmm. And grunge, to me, when it came out, was a combination of those three genres in a blender.
Yep.
I had come from a punk background because, same as you, when I first started playing music, that's what I could play. But the only problem I had with punk was it was so damn fast. Like, it was hard to play. It was really hard, at least playing hardcore punk. And so when grunge came out, and when I started gravitating towards bands that had a little more groove, I started getting into funk and things like that because I liked the beat to have a little more groove. I like to wiggle my butt a little bit more. And grunge is like the butt wiggling hard rock. It's not
more danceable.
It's not danceable, but it's just it's got a swagger to it, a sloppiness to it.
Exactly. The swagger came about from being completely opposite of the swagger that had been around for
not the
2 decades. The rock star swagger.
Exactly. The anti-rock star.
Anti-rock star. I think we talked about Stone Temple Pilots the first time I saw him. Scott comes out on stage in a dress and lipstick smeared all over his face. And guys have been dressing effeminately for years. Twisted Sister with the makeup, but it was more
Poison.
Cartoonish. Yeah, this was like scary out of your mind.
These were not pretty ladies.
No,
the dress.
But he did it, I think, just sarcastically. But then you had Soundgarden and all these other bands, Pearl Jam, that looked just like me walking down the street.
Right.
Jeans and a T-shirt.
Yeah. Wearing some work boots.
These are just like me. I mean, I empathize, or I feel what they're putting out.
And it was our time too. We were of age when this came out, to go to the clubs, to go see these bands.
We could afford to go buy beer.
Participate and be with our people.
Yes.
And I totally was into it.
But 99, for me, that was that really big, great awakening. I mean, I quit my job. Matt, you started a band in quotation marks, but it would become a capital B.
Started off as an acoustic
band,
but it turned into a
But still, that whole
band.
Transition from more of a corporate mindset for me, thinking, I go to work, come home, I'm going to get married, start a family, and threw that out the door at 29 years old and just did what I wanted to do after that.
I'm going to treat you with this next one because this is a band that you probably have already seen the guitarist play before.
Oh.
This is a band from Seattle formed by a guy named Nick Pollock. And he was the original guitarist in Lane Staley's groups Sleaze and Alice in Chains with a Z.
Oh, was it a different Alice in Chains?
So Alice in Chains, the
With a
very
Z.
first version of Alice in Chains, which they had an N just like Guns N' Roses, was the glam
Oh, was that
metal
okay? I didn't realize they had changed their
of
name.
Alice
I knew
in Chains.
they had a very different
Yeah.
past than a lot of like Soundgarden. That's metal, but still hardcore.
Yeah.
But
No, they were
Alice in
they were
Chains
like
full on glam metal.
like a sleaze
I
glam metal
love
band.
seeing the videos of that. It looks so surreal seeing them with big poofy hair.
And this guy, Nick, was the guitarist. Now, he and Lane split and they disbanded Alice in Chains. And then Lane would come back once he met Jerry Cantrell and have Alice in Chains as we know it today. The cool thing is
This whole time I thought Jerry was in the first version.
he was not.
He was not. So that's one reason why that's such a different sound right there. Okay. I was just thinking he just had this epiphany that I'm going to start playing more grungy style.
Now,
it was a different guitar player.
Now,
That makes more sense.
Well, I do believe when they first started, Jerry and Lane, when they first started, they were still doing kind of that
hairband
old
style.
repertoire of music. But yeah, no, they changed pretty quickly to what we got with the first album. But this guy, he had the same background as Lane Staley. They kind of cut their teeth in music together. And when he formed his own band called My Sister's Machine, you'll see his voice and the phrasing and everything he does is very similar to Lane. And I would give this guy a pass because I think they kind of came up with that together.
Yeah, and
in
he
their
was
formative
doing
years.
background vocals with Lane probably for years.
Exactly. Vocally, musically, pretty damn awesome as well. And the critics seem to like this band. They compared them to other famous Seattle bands at the time. I mean, they put out 2 albums, 1992 and 1994. They were right in the thick of it.
That was in the prime.
They were in Seattle, yet you're probably not aware of My Sister's Machine.
No.
And again, Candlebox was big in 1994, but these guys weren't. And I don't get it. So Candlebox, was a band they kind of put together and they made a sort of a grunge band in Candlebox. I have nothing against Candlebox. I don't really like the story of how they put them together and marketed them.
It was more of a corporate. Let's pick this guy, this guy, this guy.
Yeah.
Put them in a room.
Yet bands like this who existed in the Seattle scene, who had real connections to Alice in Chains, they're not a household name. And maybe the songs aren't as strong as the others, but I'm going to let you hear one that I think is pretty damn awesome. The 2 albums are great. I don't have any problems with them. They got dropped in 94, and that was it. Let's hear a little My Sister's Machine. This is a song called Hands and Feet from their 92 album, the first album that came out, called Diva.
Wow, you were right. You could have told me that was a young Lane Staley. I would have believed it. That's amazing.
It's a badass song.
That really is. I mean, I'd have to go back and listen to it for content as far as the lyrics go. I was mainly just listening to the music, but that by itself just puts me right back there.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like I was just transported to 1992, and that feeling I was getting from all of this new music being pushed towards me. I was like, whoa, I love all this stuff. And I remember it reminded me that at one point that same year, I got my first wah-wah pedal.
Yeah.
There was a ton of wah-wah in that, and that was it was kind of coming back, and I was getting into funk, but I was also really into grunge and what was going on with the alternative scene. And I was writing songs, and honest to God, I think I had wah-wah in every single song that I wrote that year.
You got wah-wah ankle.
Yeah, and I even remember, have you ever heard the grungier stuff that Paul Johnson and I did in Minor Earth?
No.
Oh, if I could dig that up.
That's a previous band.
Yeah.
But Paul was in all your bands and quit all your bands. I think that was the story.
Was in a lot of
Yeah,
them.
he was in our band. He quit our band, or did we quit him?
No, he quit.
That was Bill that we quit Bill. We announced that he was leaving.
I don't even. No, that was Paul. That was Paul. We announced that Paul was leaving.
It was a preemptive strike. So we heard Paul was going to leave.
So we just let him leave in the show.
In the middle of the show, or at the end of the show, I just announced that Paul was leaving the band to go into wrestling.
Go into pro wrestling.
And he just looked at me like, what?
He probably doesn't even remember that.
No, but it was like, no, you can't quit us. We quit you. Thank you very much.
But yeah, Paul and I were in a band called Minor Earth. And I think we've played a little bit of Minor Earth before, but Minor Earth evolved into more of a rock and funk rock kind of band. But early on in 1992, I was really into this kind of stuff.
You got to dig that up.
And so I remember what I thought was my just grunge classic. Like, oh, this is so 1992. It was a song called Mulch.
Alice in Chains had dirt.
I had mulch.
The record companies were looking for everything back then.
It was slow and dirgy.
Yeah,
and
that's what mulch is.
Went nowhere.
Lots of earthworms, lots of organic matter.
So if I can find mulch at some point, maybe I'll stick it in. Maybe at the end of the episode if I find it.
No.
I will treat the listeners.
You need to play that so I can comment on it. You don't put it at the end of the episode and give me a week to forget about it.
I can't play it right now. Maybe at the end of this episode, I'll dig that up before we...
But I need to hear it with you.
Oh, man. I think it's really long.
Sounds well, maybe just play a snippet.
We'll snip it.
Snip it in the bud.
We'll snip the mulch. Anyway, that band just reminded me of the feeling that I was getting and what I was going for in my own writing. I was really inspired by this kind of stuff. And it wasn't just Alice in Chains. It wasn't just the Big Four. There were a lot of bands doing this.
We've forgotten half of them these days.
But My Sister's Machine, again, Candlebox, big. This band, not. I don't understand why.
There was no passion with Candlebox. It was one of the songs that would come on the radio. You're like, okay. And you're thinking about something else. And then the next song comes on. But the stuff that we're playing, the stuff we're talking about was the stuff that I went out, bought the CDs, listened to it over and over. I thought about the lyrics, read the liner notes, things like that. There was a passion to it. It had the anger. It had all the emotions that we were all going through in our youth.
Exactly. And there are probably people that are into Candlebox, and I know they went on and made a ton of albums and I think are still around, but I remember, and somebody can say, no, you're wrong, because I'm going off memory here, but I remember going to see Living Colour in 1993. They had just put out the album Stained, which was kind of their last album for quite a while. I saw them in a club, and the band that was opening was a new band called Candlebox. And I remember the singer coming out and saying, hey, we're Candlebox. We're a brand new band from Seattle. Or I don't remember if he said Seattle or Pacific Northwest or something, but he alluded to the fact that they were part of the scene. And he said, this is our second show or something like that. Like they had literally put this band together from, now these guys may have been from other things, but they put this band together to be Candlebox, and this was like their second or third show.
Bastards.
And I was like, how'd you guys even get signed? You not even played a show. It just didn't make sense to me.
But music industry has been that way for many, many, many decades. I mean, going back to the 50s and the 60s, they would there would be somebody that saw somebody
chasing trends. And
chasing trends.
Exactly. I get it. It just, with grunge, it felt
more dirty.
So rootsy, more so than any other genre that had been prominent.
Everything had become so corporate and not corporate. It becomes so polished and big business that...
Well, you expected that from a pop band, and you could even consider some of the hair bands, a lot of the hair bands, to be pop bands.
Yeah, it really was.
But grunge was coming from a punk background.
It was a reaction to all that.
It was coming from our roots. It was coming from the anti-rock star. So
I think any other
put together
band,
an anti-rock star?
Any other band, you wouldn't have thought about it, but that particular genre at that particular time, it stung a little bit more.
All right, so you can send your hate mail to Robert Harrison. If you like Candlebox. This isn't meant to be a Candlebox hate session, but I'm just saying that whole
It is
scene.
now.
It is now. Whatever. Screw Candlebox.
Kick their ass,
I
man.
didn't like their music anyway. Okay, moving on. I like this band, though, because this band, at one point, were called the drunkest band in Seattle.
Ooh, that's
Pretty
street cred
damn
right there.
drunk to be the
Yes.
drunkest band in Seattle. This is a band called Willard.
Willard.
Just Willard.
Willard.
You know, we've had grunge bands named Paul. We've had
Steve.
Tad. You know, so here's
I don't
Willard.
remember Tad.
We played Tad in our
We
first.
did?
So this band actually has a strong connection to Tad. Now, we
Okay.
played Tad in our very first installment of Under the Grunge. That's episode 28. And the guitarist in Tad, his name is Tad, he got this band signed.
Okay.
So there you go. And guess who produced this band? None other than Jack and Dino from Skinyard, because he produced every single grunge band that ever was around.
Mm-hmm.
But he produced their first album in 1992.
He'd have to get dirty going to shows. He just sat back in the
whatever.
studio, nice air-conditioned studio.
Yeah, so Jack produced their album, and everybody loved this band in the scene, and they recorded a second album in 1993, and then they broke up before the album came out. And the album got shelved.
Because they couldn't tour to support it.
They just, whatever. Willard,
whatever
they
reason.
were drunk. What are they going to do? It was shelved for a long time. It finally got released in 2018. So here's one of these. We've talked about this before, where the second or third album just goes away and it never comes out. This one actually came out in 2018. I'm going to play from it. It's badass. This is also one of the heaviest grunge bands you'll ever hear, because they're almost grunge, sludge metal, doom metal. They're like really Sabbathy doomy with their grunge. So it's a
Excited
little
about
bit
this one.
darker, maybe even than Alice in Chains' Dirt.
Well, hit me with your Willard.
All right, here's a little Willard. And if you're a doomy, dark, depressing band, this is a great song for you to write. It's called Misery Decomposition from the album Underground.
Can you see it? Can you touch it? Can you feel it? It's
even a guitar in that? Was it just distorted bass the entire?
It's hard to tell.
2 bass players, both of them playing distorted bass. That's all I heard.
Just heavy.
It was heavy, but it wasn't.
It had a groove to it.
Like
Still had a
heavy
groove to it.
doom metal. It had a groove to it.
Yeah.
It was an upbeat doomy song. God, yeah. How do you describe this crap?
It's very grunge.
It's very grungy. I guess that's why you got to call it grunge, because it's just not any of these other things we're trying to describe it as. But that, I never could imagine that being on the radio next to.
Oh, no. This was
these
more
other
the.
bands. This would be for the really
This is
true
more like
fans.
the Mudhoney,
Yeah,
Tad,
exactly.
that sort
Yeah.
of the more underground
Kiss me,
grunge.
was it something. Kiss me, I'm sick.
Touch me, I'm sick.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what that's what reminded me of.
Very Mudhoney, yeah.
That was Mudhoney, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that song. That is the anthem of the pandemic. Oh, hey, kiss me.
Yeah, I can see why this band didn't go that far. But
Yeah, it's a niche. They're niche, unique, but
that
they
sound-
deserve some respect for that, playing that sound.
that sound is so Seattle,
Mm-hmm.
so of that time. That is a time capsule
Yep.
song. That came out in 2018, but you can tell it was recorded in 1993.
93. Okay, I was 92, 93. Yeah. Oh, that's good times.
All right, now I'm going to throw a little history on you.
Ooh.
Did you know,
Smack
Robert?
me with knowledge.
Did you know that one of the founders of the grunge scene was a 5'2" African American woman?
What?
Would you have said that? Would you say, yeah, I think grunge was founded by a very short African American woman?
No.
Probably not, but it was.
What?
There was a lady named Tina Bell. She was in a band called Bam Bam. And Kurt Cobain, Soundgarden, all of them say, yep, that's where it all started. That's where it came from.
Why are we
was
just
this
now hearing
band,
about this?
Bam Bam. Well, I'll tell you why.
Tell us.
So she formed Bam Bam in 1983 with her husband who played guitar.
Yeah.
And Bam Bam was also the very first band that Matt Cameron was in. Matt Cameron was the drummer for Soundgarden, or is the drummer for Soundgarden if they're playing, I don't know. And he's also the drummer for Pearl Jam. So he's got a little cred. And he also played on the Geddy Lee solo album, which is pretty damn cool. Yeah, so Matt Cameron started in this band. Kurt Cobain used to roadie for them. He loved this band so much that he would actually carry their stuff and help load in when he's just a kid. And they helped create the sound that became grunge. However, they were ahead of everything that was to come. And so by 1990, they had already broken up and never really got a chance to experience any of the accolades of being one of the founders of grunge, like Mudhoney and like some of these other bands went on to, Mudhoney's still around. But yeah, and there was a 3-piece version of the band.
Sorry, I have to stop you right there.
Yeah.
It's touch me, I'm sick. Why did I say kiss me, I'm sick?
Touch me, I'm sick.
I completely screwed that up. I apologize to our listeners for yet
I
again.
knew what you meant.
Yeah, but you didn't correct me, and I didn't think it. And all of a sudden, it just hit me. And I'm like, oh no, I said the wrong lyric. So I have to correct that so people don't waste their time.
And then Citizen Dick had Touch Me, I'm Dick.
Touch me, I'm sick.
Completely different one. Sorry to interrupt. I had to get that out there, though.
No.
I had to acknowledge my stupidity by saying the wrong lyrics.
I was just going to let it go.
Touch me, I'm sick.
Touch me, I'm sick.
Still applies.
Yeah, so Tina Bell, there was a 3-piece version of this band that tried to come back in 1991, but she wasn't part of it, and it just didn't really go anywhere. And then, unfortunately, they recorded, but it just never got released, really, in any kind of, pressing that was being distributed. Unfortunately, she passed away she was an alcoholic, and she passed away at age 55 in Vegas. And all of the recordings that she had, all of the poetry and her lyrics and all of her stuff was just thrown away before her family could even come. And when the family came to collect her belongings, it was like 2 things left. And everything that was all the Bam Bam stuff, all the stuff that she had kept over the years, she was trying to put together a comeback, and all that stuff was just thrown away, got lost. Luckily, the husband, they had divorced, and he had some older recordings as well, and so they started putting some stuff out, but they lost some of it. So I'm going to play something that came out in 2019. That's why you've never heard of them. So they were talked about, but nobody really had the music to put out. But in 2019, they put out an album called Free Fall from Space, and I'm going to play a song called I'm Dead.
So this is the end. I can't find my body. Show me the door. Where is my head? I'm dead.
Wow. This is why I love doing this podcast. I never would have heard that, never would have heard about it. I mean, the story is great, but that song just gets me. I mean, it's 100% goth. And I never thought about the connection of goth and grunge, which they overlap heavily.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you add metal to goth and you get kind of grunge, metal and punk.
Yeah, I was hoping you'd like that because that could have gone, and for our listeners, I'm sure that's gone one of two ways. Either you fast forwarded or,
and that's
or
understandable. This is not a goth episode, but
this is real niche,
yeah,
this kind of stuff.
But to think about when did you say that came out? I've already forgotten.
So
when it came out,
didn't get released until 2019.
Yeah, when was it recorded? I mean,
the band broke up in 1990. I don't actually know exactly when that song was
let's
recorded.
Just say late 80s.
Late 80s.
So late 80s, grunge is not a thing. It's bubbling under the surface. But
this is what people are hearing going,
yeah,
oh, this is cool.
But bands like Bauhaus, Peter Murphy, they've been out for a while, and they
had gone more pop though. They had gone more pop, and they had gone more keyboardy. They started kind of like
older
this.
Susie and the Banshees,
The Damned,
all that stuff. That all of a sudden you get this, and I could see young musicians hearing this and seeing the hair bands and going, "That's not who I am."
Yeah,
just like me, I was looking at it going, "No, that's not me."
I'm glad you said the goth thing because they were considered. They didn't know where to put this band.
Yeah,
so they kind of lumped them as a goth band. But as you can hear, it's like sorta.
Yeah, they
were a little punk, a little goth, but not 1988 goth. It's a little bit different. It's not
the vampire goth.
It's not what the Mission are doing. It's not what Sisters of Mercy. But at the same time, it's not really grunge as we know it. But it definitely influenced.
Yeah, but it's easy to see the one step beyond would be Nirvana.
Right, Kurt Cobain just loving this group, and saying, "Hey, can I carry a drum?"
Yeah, that's awesome.
The other thing I thought you might dig about it is just the kind of sonic painting that the guitarist was doing. Just not really playing what I would call a lead, but more of just like these sonic sweeps and sounds,
and that draws
manipulating
me to every time. It's not just the dark content; it's the guitar work.
So a little bit of kind of pre-shoegaze kind of going on here too. So.
All of the above. That's why I was enthralled with that song. I hope we get to revisit that. I don't know how many songs are worth it on the album, but that makes me want to hear more.
I thought about saving that for the Halloween.
Yeah.
Well, I thought about saving that
play
for
it again.
October,
I probably won't remember.
It would have worked, but we'll figure it out. Well, as we know and as we talked about on these episodes before, not all grunge came from Seattle. There were other bands trying to do the same sort of thing all across the world. How about Mexico City?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, the second grunge capital of the world.
El Grunge.
El Grunjo.
El Grunjo.
Yeah, so there's a band called Guillotina.
Oh, that's going to be going Guillotina. Lots of L's. Guillotina. Yeah, Guillotina.
Guillotina.
Is it La Guillotine or just
No,
Guillotina?
just Guillotina.
Guillotina.
From Mexico City.
That means little guillotine.
Little guillotine. Well, it's one word, Guillotina.
Right, but the ina at the end, like ita.
That's what you use on your cigars.
Yeah, exactly.
The little guillotine.
Little guillotine, yes. But like gordita from Taco Bell means little fat one. Because gordo means fat and ita means little. So that's a little fat one. That was what you're eating.
Stupid Taco Bell.
Please rise for our anthem.
Gorditas, gorditas, taco souls are we, whose lives are pledged to warm flat bread. Your salsas make us free. Gorditas.
Bless you, Taco Bell.
Let's go eat one now.
So this band formed in 1992, right in the era of everything going on, and they must have really liked Taco Bell. No, they must have really liked Seattle.
That's a long way to go from Mexico. That's a hike.
Yeah, that's a hike.
Get to Seattle.
But here's what's cool. Think of the music style that they're playing. They got signed to Warner. Somehow they got signed to Warner. And guess who they brought in to produce them?
Rick Rubin.
Jack and Dino.
Jack, Dino, got another one.
Jack, buddy, we need you to do
Come on
another one of these grunge bands. These guys, they don't speak in English.
That's
Don't worry
all
about
right.
it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, so Jack and Dino.
Distortion. More distortion.
Yeah, he did their first album that came out in 94, and then he actually did their third album as well. So pretty damn cool. Jack and Dino it literally touches everything grunge. And produces it. Now, their second album, which is the one I'm going to play from, it was their last on Warner's. They took themselves out of the game and went kind of the independent route after that. It came out in 96, and I'm going to play from this. So think about 1996. Grunge was had already peaked and was waning. But in Mexico City, this sounds pretty damn grungy. This album got some press in the States and Europe, and it got them a weird show opening for Def Leppard.
In Mexico City.
Which doesn't make any sense, but okay. They opened for Def Leppard. And in 1996, Def Leppard I think they were trying to do their own version of grunge.
Were they high and dry?
They had this Slang album, which was really bad.
Yeah.
Maybe
We've talked about all the attempts at grunge.
Exactly.
Hair bands.
They all went,
we can
get
dip
darker.
our toe in that little.
Get darker and add more wah-wah.
Yeah. Let our hair get greasy and not poof it up as much.
So yeah, they opened for Def Leppard. They, like I said, they dropped down to an indie for the third release and issued 4 more albums through 2008, and then they split up in 2011. But this band was around for a long time. I'm going to play from their very second album that came out in 96, so a little bit after the crest of the wave of grunge, but still very much grunge from Mexico City.
No es lo que decías, estás todo confundido en esencias, con creencias ya no más. No hay nadie ya que entienda, vas buscando a alguien como tú al final del día siguiente. Estás solo, como siempre, ya no más. Ya sabes cuántos van, ya sabes cuántos son, tú sabes cuántos van. Ya no sabes lo que quieres, no entiendes lo que sientes, todo lo que habías propuesto hoy se ha convertido en muertos, ya no más. Ya sabes cuántos van, ya sabes cuántos son, tú sabes cuántos ya no están. No sabemos lo que hacemos, nos escondemos de lo que creemos, todos aguardamos turno mientras morimos de uno en uno, ya no más. Ya sabes cuántos van, ya sabes cuántos son, tú sabes cuántos ya no están.
That was 100% Latin collective soul.
Yeah, you could probably say that.
Because it wasn't the heavy, dark grunge, but it wasn't...
More on the STP, Pearl Jam side.
A little more danceable, like we like to say. But his voice, Ed Roland, it sounded like a little bit of Ed Roland's voice on that. So it's funny that I started off the show with that.
Which is interesting because I never really thought of Collective Soul as a grunge band, but they definitely were lumped into that category because they came out right around that time with that first album.
Mid-90s?
It was
I can't
94,
remember.
95.
Okay, yeah, so it was, but that's what took over from grunge, before grunge, took over grunge.
That's where things went, a little more commercial pop.
A little more commercial pop. They were good-looking guys that had some catchy hooks and things like that.
And same thing here with these guys.
But it's good music. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to disparage it because I like it.
That lick is awesome in that song. That guitar lick is really, really cool. I had no idea that...
International grunge. Look at us.
We had international grunge.
This is amazing. You know, there's grunge all over the world. We're just going to keep digging.
Well, the funny thing is, I could not tell you how I stumbled upon this band. I don't remember finding out about them. I just remember the name and hearing the songs and digging it and downloading it like years ago.
Not recently then.
No. I didn't know anything about them until recently. I'd have no idea where this came from. It just ended up in my collection.
You didn't task our Obscuria task force.
No, I let them go early tonight. I hope that's all right.
Staff needs a night off.
Yeah.
God, I can't freaking talk tonight.
Why not?
I'm having a stroke, I think.
I hope
I'm having
not.
a stroke.
Did you see some lady on the news had one?
I saw the headline. I didn't want to watch it because I knew I cringed watching it.
It's not that bad.
No. But it was a pre-stroke or a mild, like the beginnings of a stroke is what it said. So
she just couldn't remember what she was trying to say, or she couldn't read or get her thoughts together. And I was like, that's me every day.
I've been having a stroke for 10 years. Exactly. One of these days I'm going to seek medical attention, but not yet. Yeah, that's tonight. My tongue is just not operating properly.
Tongue is tied.
So sorry.
That's all right. Well, why don't we move on to a band from New York? Because you're going to play a grunge episode, you got to have at least one New York band because
the streets of New York have gotten grungy again.
They're kind of gross too there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's kind of like a theme park.
Exactly.
If you're walking around New York, you're like, I'm not touching that.
Exactly.
I'm not sitting on that.
So let's talk about a riot girl band from New York that are probably considered more punk than grunge, but I throw them in because they released albums from 1990 to 1999. They covered the 90s and they were very 90s. Later on, they were definitely a punk band, but early on, I feel like they were a little more grunge. So I'm going to showcase them here. Plus, they got their break from Sonic Youth. So if Sonic Youth discovers you, that gives you grunge.
Sonic Youth.
The Sonic Youths.
From New York.
Who are also in New York. 1992, this band, they're called the Luna Chicks. I don't know if you ever heard of the Luna Chicks.
No, but I love the name.
Yeah, it's great. Okay. All girl band, great. I mean, look them up. They look tough as shit.
Yeah. Imagine what you think they look like. That's what they look like.
They're attractive, but still tough as shit.
Still kick your ass.
Still kick your ass. So in 92, the then drummer, her name was Becky Reck, and she gained popularity because she went on Howard Stern on a segment he had called Lesbian Dating Game. And so she got a little popularity, and she left the band shortly after that for now we all know her. Well, maybe not. Yeah. Okay, maybe that didn't work out the way she wanted it to, but yeah, she left.
Thought that was going to be a springboard to fame and infamy. Did not.
Yeah, maybe not.
Denied.
So they hired then Beastie Boys Luscious Jackson drummer Kate Schellenbach. Now, the reason I bring her up is, do you remember Luscious Jackson?
Oh, yeah. Naked Eye?
That was a cool band.
Yeah.
That was a very cool band. But did you know that they were originally like the backing band for the Beastie Boys?
No, when you mentioned she was the drummer, I was like, I never thought about who their drummer was.
I mean, the Beastie Boys those guys also played later on their albums, but they used to have Luscious Jackson kind of as their backing band, which is kind of cool.
I remember downloading, what was their funk album?
Whose funk album?
Beastie Boys, sorry.
Inner Sounds of...
Something like that.
Whatever it's
called. But I remember downloading it in the heyday of downloading, thinking I'd gotten something different. Like, this isn't Beastie Boys. It was like really good
was all the cool funk music.
Yeah, and I'm like, somebody mislabeled this, and then somebody else told me, like, no, they really did that. I had no idea they were... I mean, I knew they were talented, but that just took it to a new level.
Yeah. So Kate Schellenbach, the reason I'm bringing her up is she's better known now because she's a famous TV show producer. She's produced Ellen. She's produced all sorts of talk shows.
How do you make that jump?
I don't know. She's currently producing the Late Late Show with James Corden. She's the producer of those shows.
Yeah, you're making good money doing that.
Yeah.
Once you're on network primetime like that.
And that's all she's done. Or like she did Chelsea Handler's show. She did all of these female comedians. She's kind of been the.
She just
producer
must have
under those.
met somebody and then started and worked her way up, or I don't know if she had that going on the whole time.
Interesting. I don't know. Just interesting that she was in Luscious Jackson and
Yeah.
also Lunatics as well. So
Multi-talented.
she would be an interesting person to talk to. Think about the stories that she has.
God, from which side of the spectrum?
Everything she's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so moving on. She wasn't in Lunatics for too long, but the Lunatics themselves, over the years, they were like the Vans Warped Tour band. They were always on the Warped Tour. They played with the Ramones, the Buzzcocks, No Doubt, the Go-Go's, Rancid, NoFX, mostly punk bands. So mostly considered a punk band, but I think, I'm going to play this song and you tell me. This came out in 1995 from their album Jerk of All Trades, a song called Why Me? And you tell me if they shouldn't be considered grunge. I think they should. So.
All right.
Here you go. Here's Why Me.
course, have to say that reminds me of a certain lead singer of a band that you played bass in. What would that band's name be? The Swear. That was your swear moment.
So you thought that sounded like Elizabeth.
I know how to be a lovable asshole. That's my favorite thing to do.
Thunder Stealer.
Yes. So if Courtney Love can be considered grunge, then yes, this band can be considered grunge. It was on the lighter side of grunge. It was punk. It had some weirdness to it. This is what music was going towards as we went into the mid 90s,
which is when this came out.
Yeah, and so that was right where the music business was going in that direction.
Yeah, I think you can consider the first half of their catalog grunge. Just because of the feel that you get from it, but they're totally a punk band.
Yeah.
But anyway.
It's good.
Got one more for you, and here's a Welsh band. So we did a bunch of Seattle bands.
Getting on a plane, crossing the pond.
Now we're going over to the pond.
Welsh land.
And only their first two albums.
Is that where they make white grape juice?
No, that's Welch's.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
You're sorry.
Close.
Sorry to burst your bubble there. No, it is not the land of grapes. Wales. Okay, so only their first two albums could really be considered grunge, but they are very similar to their countrymen who we have dedicated 2 episodes to. That would be the Manic Street Preachers. Their early albums could be considered kind of grunge as well, and this band's in the same category. They're from the same area. This is a band called Feeder.
Okay.
Do you remember Feeder at all?
That name sounds more familiar. No, I'm thinking of Breeder.
The Breeders?
Yeah, sorry. No, I was thinking of the Breeders.
Okay, well, Feeder, the only reason I ask you if you remember them is I know that they had a song or two that were featured on 99X back in the day.
Okay, so I may have heard them.
You may have heard them. I'm probably not going to play the song that they played, but
remember, I didn't get to Atlanta until 95, so 99X was around for few years before that.
Yeah, so this album actually came out in 97, so they were past kind of the grunge thing, but I would still throw them in the grunge category, their first 2 albums. Metal Hammer and Kerrang both labeled the band the UK's answer to the Smashing Pumpkins when their first album came out. So they have a very Smashing Pumpkins feel. That's a band that we haven't mentioned, but they were...
Yeah, they're right up there,
They were really in that same space, even though they were from Chicago. They were very much a grunge band. Just the whole, they had a little more psychedelia. A lot of orchestrated songs. I mean, it was kind of like the Guns N' Roses of grunge, where their songs were huge, long. Not all of them, obviously. Let's say "Rat in the Cage." That was just that was just a good grunge song. But the rest of their stuff, it was just over the top and really good. Yeah. So this band Feeder was very similar, and like I said, they were very similar to Manic Street Preachers' first couple albums as well. And when we talked about Manic Street Preachers on those 2 episodes that we did, we said that when they started, they were kind of like Guns N' Roses meets grunge meets UK Britpop. And so this band Feeder, kind of the same. They did tour the States after their first album came out, opening for Everclear, who had just had a big hit around that
Santa
same
Monica.
time. Yeah. Never struck a chord with me. I never really got into that band at all. Just didn't work for me. It's kind of like Candlebox.
That and
just didn't work. So anyway, they toured the States opening for Everclear. When they went to the UK, that completely flip-flopped, and Everclear opened for Feeder because Feeder became a huge success in the UK. They just never really went anywhere here in the States, but in the UK, they're a big band, and they're still around. In fact, they just released a new album this year. But it was only the first 2 albums where they had that really heavy, grungy, alternative sound, and then they started becoming more, just like the Manic Street Preachers, more of a Britpop kind of, I don't know, a more epic type of band. They had some slower stuff, but they had a lot of hits, a lot of singles. In fact, between 97 and 2012, they had 25 top 75 singles in the UK.
Wow.
They headlined a lot of their major venues, like they played Wembley. They had their own show at Wembley. They did over 2 million in sales in the UK. They've had gold and silver albums in the UK. Again, huge in the UK, just never did anything here. But I remember when that first album came out, and 99X, our local station in Atlanta, played Feeder, and I went right out and bought the album and still consider it one of the best grunge albums. I'm throwing up air quotes.
Yeah.
I consider it grunge, their first album, even though it came out in 97. I'm going to play a little bit of a slower number, but it just, I don't know, I love the feel of this song. The name of the album is Polythene, and the name of this song is Change.
Stare at streets that bear no touch me there, I feel a sense of urgency unveil. What's in store for us today? Read the paper, drift away.
If the lead singer had only sounded more like Cartman, you would have had Smashing Pumpkins. You guys.
Very true.
I mean, that sounded just like, except for the singer, but it was really good. But it shows the more melodic side to grunge. Grunge wasn't always about the distorted, heavy punk side of grunge. It spanned several different genres. And that was the other songs you would hear on the albums besides the hits. You know?
Right.
I don't know about Nirvana, but...
Well, think about your Black Hole Sun.
Black Hole Sun.
All that stuff.
Alice in Chains had lots of really mellow songs. The lyrics were really deep, sometimes dark.
And I could have played a faster number from this band, and it would have sounded a little more in that era
But that was very Smashing Pumpkins.
Oh, I just love this band. And something that struck me as I was listening to all of these tonight is the separation. You got to listen to these songs with headphones on, or at least in a car where you really have good separation, because I don't hear it as much now. It seems like everything now is so compressed. There's a lot of space, and you get a lot of, in this genre especially, you get a lot of variation in the two guitars. Usually there's two guitar tracks or three, and there's so much variation in what they're doing, unlike a lot of the other genres that have come before this. So it was like, you know, and I think Guns N' Roses kind of did this too, because Easy Stradlin was kind of jangly, and then you had Slash doing the more intricate kind of stuff. So it wasn't kind of the sleaze metal too, but really the grunge bands, I mean, if you listen to the separated tracks on your headphones, you're going to hear one guy's playing a very different rhythm that's kind of sloppy or something. The other guy's playing like a notey single note thing. There's so much separation in all of these tracks.
Well, the song we played earlier with the really low guitar leads in the mix, with headphones on, you can hear them. And you maybe just, you know, I don't know if you can hear it in your car as well, but it was just real light, and it was just, they're almost competing at times, but they went together.
And the other thing is they like to keep an effect on versus just using it for a little bit of spice. So like in this song, you had a lot of, I guess that was tremolo or maybe a flanger, and it went all the way through the song. And some of the other songs we played, it's the wah-wahs going all the way through. You've got a rhythm track doing something else that's a little more jangly, but then you got this one effect on the guitar that kind of stays the entire song.
It's the theme. It's not just a gimmick.
Yeah. It's just like another
throughout the 80s, it was a gimmick. Okay, here I'm going to do this one thing, and then next I'm going to do
a lot of guys in the 80s,
thing.
they pop it on for the lead.
Yeah.
You know, you'd use a wah-wah like Metallica. Oh my God, Kirk Hammett uses wah-wah in I think every lead that he plays. But other than that wah-wah was off, you know. But it was I don't know, it's just a little bit of variation on heavier music.
Oh, speaking of Metallica, I also learned something. The intro to When the Bell Tolls, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I had no idea this whole time that was the bass.
Yeah, it's Cliff.
It was amazing when I saw a YouTube, I don't know what rabbit hole is going down, but it was Cliff Burton and doing that. And then I went through, and there was Jason Newsted, and then I saw another one with Rob. So I got to see all three of them do their own version of it. And it was with a wah and a bass.
Yeah, so Cliff used to, you know, he played a Rickenbacker when he first started with Metallica, and he would, you know, Rickenbackers have a lot of trebly punch to him. So he would not only play the Rickenbacker, but he'd run that through a whole shit ton of distortion, and then he'd also lay the wah-wah on top of it. So it's like, basically he was leading, like lead guitar bass.
Yeah, and that's why I was fascinated, because I loved that song. It was the first time I ever saw headbanging in person, the entire arena, because they opened with that song in '91, and that was the first big show I'd been to ever. And all of a sudden, my first show, my first song, and all of a sudden everybody starts banging their head. I'm like, what are you doing? You're going to be sore in the morning. What are you? Then you get into it.
I remember because the second show I ever saw was Metallica in Queensryche, and I remember the same thing because I had been to Van Halen prior to that, the only other show I'd been to, and very different crowd.
Yeah, you don't want to headbang to
the
Van
Sammy
Halen.
Hagar, Van Halen, and then going to see Metallica. And I remember these two guys in front of us who had their battle vest on. They looked so super cool, a lot cooler than I did at that time, and they literally started headbanging from note one. I never once saw them look at the band.
Yeah.
Like their heads were down. They were air guitaring the entire time. Didn't miss a note on their fake guitars that they were playing. And I'm like, are you even looking at Metallica? They're right in front of you.
That's why it was such an experience. I'm like, all these people knew this, every single song, note for note, keep in rhythm.
Yeah.
I'd just never seen anything. It was just a spectacle all at the same time. So I'm glad that was my initiation. I was already enthralled with them at that time. And I'm like, oh, okay, you were gods.
And there again, it's like we were throwing things in the blender as far as getting to the 90s, right? So you had this thrash speed metal. I was into punk. Yeah, it was fast. But then you had like this groove stuff coming. So all of that thrown in the blender, you get this grunge
Little
thing.
bits and pieces of all that.
Yeah.
Shredded.
So that was the last song I had for you.
You find
I
it?
found Mulch. Now,
Was it like 8 minutes?
it's 6:21. We're not going to get
6:21.
through this whole
No,
thing. You give me the high sign when you have just thrown up in your mouth and you've had enough.
Okay. Let's see how
But
long I can make it
This
through
was my attempt I have to set the scene here. This was my attempt in 1992. I had only been playing guitar for maybe 2.5 years at this point.
And by this time, you had heard grunge for a year.
Yeah, like I said, I started off with punk, so I knew of some of these bands. I just thought they were punk bands. But I was also getting into all this other stuff, prog rock.
Yeah.
I was starting to hear all these things, and yes, this was my attempt to immerse myself
I'm
in the
looking forward to
culture
this.
of grunge. Yes,
Let's roll this.
this is grunge from South Carolina.
A lot of flannel in the hills.
Boy. Now, the other thing before I play this, not a great recording, okay? We didn't have any money. We were poor college kids, and we recorded, I believe, this is either something we recorded on our own in like a rehearsal room, or perhaps this was when we went to the radio station.
Oh, that time, yes.
And
you took over their office.
We took over the office and recorded one night. So here's something you can speed through if you want, but for those who have the constitution, here's Mulch.
heat. Oh, the fires from below. Turn on the black glow. All eyes turn inward to see a suffering beast. Yeah, clock strikes 12 and all is well. The clock strikes 1, but who can tell? The clock strikes 2 and by the ring of the bell, everyone knows I'm going to hell.
You know, this is challenging because I want to say some things, but I know if I say something, then next week you're going to pull out some of my early stuff, and it's god awful painful to listen to that stuff. Our later stuff, I love listening to. My early stuff is fingernails on it. My own songs, fingernails on a chalkboard. So,
Oh, yeah.
that once first of all,
that.
that took 3 minutes to get to the lyrics. Number one.
Yes.
Yeah. Once you got the lyrics, I'm like, okay, you get a little reprieve. And then all of a sudden the drummer decides to show up.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh, this sounds like grunge. That section sounded like grunge. You nailed it. And then it just
Then it goes
faded
off the wall
Off
again.
the wall. I'm
Yeah.
not sure where it went after that, but
Yeah.
I was looking for a verse, another chorus or something.
Yeah, there were no verses.
There were no
or
verses or
choruses. No, this
choruses
was
in that.
just verse, basically.
Verse, just a verse. That was so alternative.
We
It
were
was
so-
that alternative. There was no
So,
chorus.
We played that. We got a gig after, I think it was homecoming, actually. So Clemson, South Carolina,
Yeah.
they have this big homecoming field. We have a big field where everybody does floats and all the homecoming stuff.
Yeah.
You know, very populated by people coming from all over the state to see
Oh,
the
yeah.
football
It's
game.
not just the students, it's the
No, it's
alumni.
like the alumni and everybody.
Reunions. And
We
things.
somehow get a gig on the stage that they have put up in the middle of this field. That is the type of music that we were playing for 1 hour on this stage in front of all these people. And the looks
In
on
91.
people in 1992.
No, 92.
And the looks on people's faces were like, what is this?
Because, well, explain. Grunge had not quite reached the outer depths of the South.
No, it was, yeah.
By
it was-
once again, I was in Tallahassee. You were in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Grunge to us started about 90. I think I didn't hear Teen Spirit.
The dudes were
until
into it.
Late 91 or yeah. Oh yeah, this is 100%. Grunge was dude rock first,
Yeah.
and the ladies came along sometimes.
But we weren't even grunge. We were
Yeah,
like
it was
experimental. Like what
experimental.
the hell?
This is college rock at 2 a.m. right here. College radio.
But not college homecoming parade bands on the field with all these people. That's what they got.
Nice. You know what? That's metal right there. You regain my respect by telling me that.
Oh man, yeah. So if you listen to that, I'm
Classic.
sorry.
Yeah. No, we made it through
But
it.
I thought it was at least a history lesson.
No,
That
it was.
we needed to visit.
Back then, that was authentic. It was from your heart. And it reminded me of your chord progressions when you and I started writing together. How many times I had to sit there and look at you like, what the fuck is that?
It was-
What kind of chord? You're just making up stuff.
I just made geometrical shapes with my fingers.
Yeah. And I was used to, hey, you know what? G, A, D, C, E, sometimes A minor. I can write every song I need to write with those 6 chords. And then you would throw these chords out there. I'm like, whoa, well, you got to draw me a diagram. Like, not just a chord, but a diagram. I need some research behind this. What the hell is that chord? So that's what you got there. You had some amazing chords that I still have no idea what they are.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah, it's a good thing we have a podcast now.
Yes.
I don't have to subject you to that
I don't have to
anymore.
make the chords anymore.
Well, that's what I got for you. A little grunge and ending with some very bizarre grunginess.
That's okay. I like the bizarre. You know that.
All right, man. Well, until next time. See you. Later, people.